Welcome very much indeed to CIAO, Coaching Inside and Out's coaching workshop for the HMPPS Insights Festival 2025. My name is Claire McGregor, and I set up the charity Coaching Inside and Out back in 2010, was when it all began. And I'm really delighted that we have here today, not just all of you fabulous people in the audience, but we have James, who works with us in schools. We have Fiona, who works with us in probation. James also works in Style Prison. We have Vicky, a governor, who was with us in Style and is now in Hindley. And we have the fabulous Pavir as well, who has a number of different roles and experiences to share. So they will all be introducing themselves later. But for now, we're really interested in why you are here. So if you would like, please, to pop into the chat. Why are you here? Why have you turned up today? What are you wanting to get out of this session? Because we'd really like to know. We always want to know who's in the room, who are we working with, how's it going? Of course, CIAO is here. We're here because we want to change the world, basically one question at a time. But we decided to begin with where people are often seen as hopeless or helpless, and where people don't think there is any hope. And that's why we began in Style Prison back in 2010, so 15 years ago. So we are 15 this year, which is amazing. So what have we got coming up in the chat? Why are people here? Okay. General interest. Okay, outside interest in the prison service. Lovely. Tips. Yeah. There'll be various tips and questions and ideas that you might be sharing, which would be good. Quality development officer. Good. Yeah, improving practice and coaching questions are a great way of opening that up, getting everybody's ideas for improving practice. Coaching training. Lovely. You are not alone on this call, Abby. And now the things are coming in. Oh, how CIAO makes a difference. Oh, Siobhan, I think that's our Siobhan from South Central. She's not our Siobhan, she works for South Central Probation. But we will hear more on hopefully how coaching is able to make a difference. Hospital volunteer. Revision on coaching questioning styles. Oh, hello, Catherine St. John Brooks. Lovely to have you. Yeah, that sense of probably everyone in here does already absolutely do some coaching, but we can all build our coaching muscle. And so within today's event, you're absolutely going to be hearing sort of CIAO's story and some of the stories of our clients, but you're also going to be hearing, we're going to be doing an activity that helps you go back into your questioning and gives us, a little bit of hope for the future individually for ourselves. Oh, lovely. Policy and projects, not just frontline, as well. General interest, learning tips, and so on. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed for that. So, oh, I've jumped far too far ahead. So what we'd love to know, just before we go into one of those things that helps us make sense of ourselves as coaches, could you do a quick hands up? Either if you've got a video on, wave your hand in the air, or pop a hand up, raise your hand electronically. If you are a coach, really curious how many coaches there are in the room, and I am going to put mine up. Catherine's got hers up. Confused why James and Fiona don't have theirs up. Okay, Pavir's should, yeah, okay, so brilliant. So, I don't know, I think, James, how many do you think you've got there? About a third?
Yeah, I'd say about a third. Yep.
Okay, lovely. That's great, because if you're already an expert coach, we can always get extra stuff from listening to others and thinking differently. But if you're new to it and your coaching muscle, you know where it is, but it's not very much built up, then we're really hoping to help you with that today. And the way we have designed this workshop is specifically for you for today. This isn't a sales pitch. This isn't a how great is CIAO. It's absolutely about helping you go away today with some things that should really help you in your life and in your work. So let's start. So we're not going to ask you what you think of coaching, which we probably would do if we were in a room together. Instead, a thing that we find really helpful is what's our natural instinct. When someone wants help and they come to us with a problem, we're not talking about a prison command and control situation or probation, emergency. Someone comes to you, they've got a problem. What is your instinct? Are you naturally a teller? Do you tell them, do you say what you would do or what you might like them to do? Or are you a sharer, which is kind of a bit like a teller, but in a more friendly, story-based way, sharing your experience and ideas? Are you a doer? Are you a really practical person who just wants to sort the problem out and get the job done? You know, let's move forward. Or are you an asker? Do you ask questions to help them think about it? Not to help you understand the problem more, but to help them think about it and move forward. Okay. So we would love you to pop, if everyone can just pop in the chat, you naturally tell, share, do, or ask, or are you a mix of those? The reason I'm here with you today is because no one is more of a natural teller than me. My absolute instinct, it took me until I was 30 until I realized I didn't know anyone else's life better than they did, you know. So it's that sense of, you know, I even know obviously how the way the dishwasher is put together. So instead, training as a coach helped me enormously as I realized, you know, just what happens when we ask questions. Because you may have noticed it's exhausted trying to change the world on our own, isn't it? But by asking questions, we can help come up with hear everyone else's ideas, and just life and work can become a lot easier. So I would love to see, James, what can you see coming in through the chat? What sort of range have we got there?
I'm just double checking. Catherine's still got a hand up. I don't know if that was left over from the coaching question, or Catherine, have you got a question at this point? No, no question. Okay, no problem.
Excellent. Okay, I'm looking at it now. So what do you got? Mix of do and ask. Yeah. Tell, share, ask, do, mixed. Tend to share, mixed, etc. Yeah, depending on the situation is interesting, isn't it? And that's why we sort of try to, what's your instinct? Just naturally, non-urgent problem. But sometimes, yeah, it depends on just how much we know as well. It can be difficult not to share the benefit, give everyone the benefit of our great wisdom. But sometimes their wisdom is far more than ours. Wonderful. Yeah, lovely. Intuitively a sharer, but trying to be more of asker. Lovely. Oh, and yeah, Joseph, ask. Oh, there we go. Tell her before being introduced to coaching. So. What do we mean by coaching? Thank you for that. So for us, it's all about the thought-provoking questions, because you see, the problem with the C word is you get 3 coaches in a room and you'll get 4 definitions of coaching. But we absolutely mean it's just about the coaching questions, curious questions that provoke thought in the people we're talking to. And the reason CIAO, Coaching Inside and Out, began was we want to help people improve their own lives, but really, really importantly, we want them to go on and improve the lives of others as well. And our clients really do pay it forward, and it's just beautiful to see that sort of mushrooming, snowballing effect as it carries on. So that's what we mean by coaching in an absolute nutshell, and then a bit of a diagram to help us make sense of it. So it's very much not the past. We're not interested in what people did, why they're in prison, why they're on probation, or anything like that. We're not interested in where things have come from, but we do have counsellors, you know, we don't have trained counsellors within our team, but they absolutely step into the future thinking stuff and the coaching. Or what could also be in that future thinking stuff is the mentoring. But of course, mentoring's more doing, you know, helping out as well. Mentors can ask great coaching questions, but we hold that line really carefully. So we do not do any mentoring. We just ask the thought-provoking, hence the thought cloud coaching. So yeah, we're not meow. We're not mentoring inside and out. We're CIAO. We're coaching inside and out, because it would have been exhausting. However cute it might sound being meow. Yeah, setting up for another charity was far too much for me. And also, the world is full of mentors. I don't know if any of you are short of advice, but yeah, I'm certainly not. So that's what CIAO means by mentoring, and what by there we go, done it already. That's what CIAO means by coaching. And I would love now to invite our Fiona. Fiona will explain a lot more about what she's been doing with CIAO in probation. But Fiona, if now you explain your actual probation role and describe how this arrow fits in with the probation world.
Certainly, thank you. So I have been in the accredited programs team, which are the structured interventions that people on probation can do if it's part of their orders as a requirement. So I've specialised over the years in domestic abuse. And while I've been doing that, I trained as an accredited coach, and I joined CIAO a couple of years ago, just at the point at which we started phase 2 of Greater Manchester probation contract. Is there anything at that point you want to know further, Claire?
Just how, so on this arrow, how does probation fit in with this arrow? For a probation practitioner or someone in the interventions, what does this mean to you? How does it fit with what's going on in probation?
Yeah, so over the years, we've definitely seen probation and the criminal justice system move more towards a strength-based motivational interviewing approach. And at the moment, the Building Choices programme that's run for everybody who has a programmes requirement is very much coaching philosophy. So the work that we do in CIAO very much aligns with what practitioners are doing, good practice says we should be doing, and it underpins a lot of the current goals and direction for people who are working in and who are people on probation. So for me, coaching fits in and CIAO as an essential part of the strengths-based approach suite of services that are offered for people on probation. And it fits in very much with, we are non-enforceable and it's confidential. And that's something that a lot of people who have become CIAO clients in the last 2 years that we've been doing phase 2 have appreciated, because they choose for themselves to come and engage with the service. It's confidential unless there is safeguarding issues, obviously, like with everyone who is working with, as professional services. But people really appreciate that when they sit with a CIAO coach, they have that strengths-based approach that other people that are working with them have as well, but they can talk things through at their own pace and choose for themselves how they decide to approach whatever problems or issues that they're facing.
Brilliant. And so the difference with probation staff, they are still probation. They are still the government, and that you still do have that enforceable, you still have that enforcer role as part of your roles. Whereas with CIAO as coaches, we are solely coaches and providing that role, which it can be a very different dynamic, can't it? Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Fiona. And we will hear more from you and about the Greater Manchester probation stuff in a bit. Thank you very much. And now, Vicky, I would love you to introduce who you are. We'll hear from you later about the work you've been doing, about how you came across CIAO, how you came across coaching inside and out in style. But for now, it would be great to hear from you how you see that arrow and coaching fitting in with prison and prison staff on the wing, etc. So how does this arrow make sense for people working in prisons?
Okay, so I'm Vicky Sampi. I'm currently head of safety at Hindley Prison. So I manage the self-harm and the violence. I manage the segregation unit for those prisoners that have not stuck to prison rules, maybe the fighting or causing other problems on normal location. And they also run the personality disorder unit. So I think we've always had counselling services in the prison. We have an amazing mental health team. There is a waiting list, but the waiting lists are much shorter than outside in the community. And we've always had a sort of mentoring scheme as well. So when I was new in service, I made sure that I found myself a good mentor that I could talk to outside of the prison. And I think that is definitely in them sessions. It's about, I talk about problems and they will talk to me about times that they've been in a similar situation. I think we've invested more recently in a more coaching training for senior managers, because we're trying to move to a place where our staff will think things through for themselves and get the opportunity to do that. And I think that's just the difference between mentoring and telling people and actually coaching people and getting them to discover what the solution is, because there are problems here every single day at different levels. Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at the minute.
Brilliant. And it's similar as well, isn't it? Working staff on the wing, working with prisoners.
Absolutely.
However you might be having a coaching conversation, you still then absolutely have that power, rather than being, with coaching, it's much more generally for CIAO a conversation of equals. When someone is an officer, it is still different. So yeah, there is that difference in there. Excellent. Thank you. We will hear from both of you shortly. Wonderful. Thank you very much. So just a little bit more on what we mean by coaching. So you will all have experienced or be doing goal coaching all the time. You'll all be looking at the, what do you want to change, smart objectives, smart goals, all that kind of stuff. That goal level of coaching, that blue sky thinking is all around us. What do you want to change? A lot of you, I really, really hope, will have absolutely experienced some exploration of your own values and strengths, or you will be doing that with other people. And that's the who are you stuff, the green stuff that gives us energy. Chow's very first male client in the community said he'd never had any meaningful use of time and he couldn't think of any goals. So we went straight into his values and strengths and started looking at what might give him the energy to keep going and explore and really see how he was. But the genius stuff, the goal coaching, the good coaching, but the great coaching is absolutely those rose-tinted spectacles or whatever glasses we have that have the assumptions that hold us back. And so we put it in that sort of crystal. You can't always see it, can you? You don't even know sometimes that you have these assumptions, and how we are holding ourselves back is just always fascinating. And Chow coaches and other great coaches have that way, sort of helping people flip some great coaching questions that help people shatter their assumptions, or look at great assumptions that you might have, like, I think I can change the world one question at a time. So yeah, we look at the great coaching as well, the great coaching questions too. And it works. I mean, that first client who didn't think he could have any goals, we had to stop coaching him after 2 sessions because he got a job. So that's the kind of stuff it can do. But it's not just start at the top, work your way down or anything else. It's always, always, always about the person we're talking to, about the client, and you pick whatever they need, what's going to be most useful for them in the moment. And obviously it's about the relationship and then a real balance. Some people think this is pink and fluffy, but oh, it isn't. One of my clients said being coached by me was like having sort of, brain surgery while you're awake. Thinking can be really, really hard. So it can be deeply challenging. But Chow's coaches and all good coaches, they're really good at also supporting and holding the client as they go with that. And then it's your choice. You choose whether or not to be coached, and then anything you do, it's your responsibility, but the coach will then be curious as to what happened. Why did that happen? Let's explore that. What went well? What might you do differently next time? All of that sort of stuff is what follows afterwards. Okay, so that's what we mean by coaching. Any questions so far on the meaning of what we're saying and what we're doing? Because now, while we present the next section, we'd really love to know where you are using coaching. We'd be really, really interested to find that out, because this is where Chow has used coaching so far. So you can see down the side, the grey is where we have coached in the past, and the black ones are where we are currently working. So you can see we're still with Greater Manchester Probation in schools in Manchester, Hindley, where Vicky is, and in Style Prison. But you can see we've worked across various areas, so Southwest and South Central Probation. We've done some coaching circles, which we'll talk about later. But you can see where we began, the little cluster around Greater Manchester, and we've done some Midland stuff too. So hopefully you can see your patch. And we've talked about it across, well, we've talked about it across the whole world, but we've talked about it across all of the country. Here are our commissioners on the right. We haven't yet managed to get Ordnance Survey to commission us, but they did provide the map. So that's where we work. And now, just briefly, I'm going to take you the kind of different groups we've talked about before we hear from some people with some examples of how this has worked. So we began back in 2010 when the money ran out in the world in 2008. And it suddenly dawned on me, I'd been coaching people like you, prison governors, senior police officers, chief execs of companies and charities. And I thought, wait a minute, I can cycle to Style Prison. And 6 women had killed themselves in Style in that year before. And so I rang the governor and he said, great, when can you start? But since then, we've worked with all genders, including trans people, all crimes and all times. So, one of our earlier clients was in there just for 4 more weeks. So we did some very rapid coaching with her. We've worked with people purely convicted of sexual offences down in H&P Ashfield and elsewhere, and absolutely all ages and stages of the criminal justice system, from around in prison, out through the gate, and so on. And as it says, the 11-year-olds in schools, you'll hear more from James about that in a moment. And part of problem-solving courts as well, because we absolutely believe it's never too early and never too late. But it became really clear while we started doing all that, that families also, there was a real interest in that. So we worked with the stronger families. Some people called it the problem families group, which was counterproductive, but the stronger families group. So we work with families. So we work with people related to people within the criminal justice system, and also the staff working with them. And we started that in Kirkham, and that was really rich, because it's that question of why prisoners getting help and I'm not. So there we go. So those are all the different ways that we are working at the moment. And what I would now love to do, I will stop sharing, and we will hear from our special guests, including those from the very front line. So, Vicky, would you like to speak to us about what on earth it was like from your perspective when Chow started coaching in style back in November 2010? What did you see?
Yeah.
How was it for you?
So I was head of safety at Style. So there's so many vulnerable women inside Style prison. A lot of women have suffered domestic violence. We had high levels of self-harm. A lot of women are obviously, apart from the children and some very young children, a high proportion addicted to substances. And a lot of women felt really, really low, fed up, didn't think that they could change, there was no hope. And suddenly this service starts, and women were coming to tell me about these sessions that they'd had, and it was just like speaking to a different person. So women that did feel really down in themselves with no confidence whatsoever, didn't see anything good happening upon release, were suddenly coming and telling me about these sessions and how the confidence is so much better, how they're feeling about themselves, and plans that they had, plans for release, plans for the future, what they wanted to do with their life. And I just couldn't believe it. So I had to meet the coach, because I obviously wanted to talk to her about, like, what is this? So I took an interest in it right back then. And then I was fortunate enough to be part of the training group when Hindley commissioned.
Brilliant. We'll come to that.
Well.
We'll come to that in a bit. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
And that coach, that was our Jules.
Yes.
Yeah, that was our Jules.
Yes.
Fabulous.
Amazing.
Indeed, lots of smiles from all the coachy Chow people in the room about our Jules. Brilliant, thank you. Wonderful. So there's a governor's perspective on what they saw. I mean, there were also numerous security reports. It's, you know, there was other stuff too. But then I always remember going out through the gate and one of the officers saying, "Why you lot are always smiling? Why is that?" It's like, oh, well, let us tell you. So yeah. But James, what was it like for you as a coach, or is it now like as a coach for you working in Style Prison?
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, I've been with Chow for about 4 years and coaching in Style since for about 8 months, so relatively recently compared to my time with Chow. But there are lots of similarities that, you know, hearing Vicky talk about how things were 15 years ago, I can relate to a lot of those things that she was saying now, in that there are still people, you know, obviously facing real challenges. But they come into these sessions, and that external person to listen to them provides them with you know, it's a coaching term, but a safe space for them to be able to explore what's going on for them. And so often when we reflect on a session and you know, I ask what's been useful or what have you taken from this session, often it is them just offloading things. It's being able to express what they're thinking and feeling in a way that they can't do elsewhere in the prison, where often they've got this armor up, you know, they've got a reputation and they're playing a role within the prison, whereas they come into these sessions and they can just let go of all of that and do some of that good work, thinking and understanding emotions.
Yeah.
I'm always
sorry, go on.
I'm always amazed as well, although there is lots of differences coaching inside a prison compared to coaching outside, and I coach outside as well. There are also a lot of similarities. You know, we are still coaching human beings, so they come with the issues around how to manage relationships or how to build confidence, you know, the things that I would coach chief executives or you know, business leaders outside the prison as well. So you know, I obviously have my own ideas about what to expect, but I probably didn't imagine that there'd be so many similarities in the issues you coach people on.
Yeah. Oh, you've reminded me, James, when we started coaching staff in Kirkham, I used to get case studies through and I had to ask, is this a member of staff or is it a prisoner? For some of them, you know, it's like human beings are human beings.
Yeah.
And similarly there, when we started coaching men in the community or in prisons, a lot of men said they were sort of able to be human rather than a man. You know, they were able to, as you say, that facade. Brilliant, beautiful. And yeah, we're working with young adults, more specifically in style as well. But the whole prison landscape, it's not getting any better, is it? And I don't think that's news to anybody. But we're looking to develop micro coaching. How can we do coaching rather than in 6 hours? How can we do it in 6 minutes? How can we do it in 6 seconds by asking a great coaching question? So Chow, now that we're 15, we're going to do a whole load of thinking around how can we develop those micro approaches and share them with people so that everybody can use them to change, help people change their own lives and the lives of others. Thank you very much indeed. And so after starting in style, very shortly afterwards, Cheshire Probation gave us a contract to coach women in style. And then they gave us an almost immediate contract to coach through the gate out into the community. And so that was back in 2023, we started going through the gate with Cheshire. And now we've done various things with probation, and then back more recently in the last 5 years or so, we did a very quick pilot with Tameside Probation, which is part of Greater Manchester, for men who were anxious and depressed. And as a result of that, Greater Manchester put out a tender for the IOM contract. And at this point, I will let you explain what IOM means. Fiona, over to you.
Thank you, Claire. So IOM is also called Spotlight because it's a historical name for a cohort of people that are basically very, very stuck in the very rapid revolving door of going in and out of prison. Most people that are on the integrated offender management, which is what it stands for, cohort, and the fixed cohort have very heavy monitoring in the community. They have their own police officers as well as probation officers and extra funding put into the suite of services that is around them. However, that also means that often there are very, very big barriers to overcome to get somebody to sit in front of you and even have a chance to use the 8-second questions that you've just said, Claire. So we've been working with people, we've been attempting, it's very challenging, to work with people pre-release and in and out of prison when they're on short recalls as well. A lot of our clients who had started coaching and went in for a 28 or a 14-day recall come out and invariably re-engage with their coach. And some of the people that we've worked with, very much the officers that we've worked with have said, we've never seen somebody engage like this before. We've never seen somebody start to see the benefits of talking to a professional and then starting to make decisions for themselves about what they need to do to address this revolving door that they're stuck in. So that's what we've been doing for the last almost 2 years, I think, Claire, now in
Yes.
phase 2. Shall I say a little bit about phase 3 as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So what, people, you just see the difference. I've often said, people often ask, how do we measure it? And we'd use stars and various tools and, you know, assessments. However, I've always said you can stick a measuring stick outside the rooms and you see people sort of literally, you know, look you in the eye, grow and just build in confidence. But yes, a great amount of probation could really see the difference. And that led to a third contract being put out to tender, and Chow were delighted to be successful in getting that. So Fiona, onto the third contract. What's going on now?
I call it blossoming. The mostly males that I have been working with, I call it blossoming. That's what their probation officers often say. I've never seen him sit in a room or her in a room and talk or be more calm or organized about how they manage their time to get and sit in a room with me. I've never seen him more willing to actually talk and engage with other services as well. So it's all the wonderful benefits of coaching. And in October, we moved from phase 2, which was with a relatively small, very challenging cohort to engage with, to now we're just on the starting blocks of offering to all people on probation in Greater Manchester, no matter, unless they're heading towards reset, which is where we step away, even though they're still on probation, and we can't offer services anymore. But anyone, apart from people who we can't sit with on our own, but I'm sure that there are ways that we can do that and work around that as well. Anyone on probation can now be offered coaching in Greater Manchester Probation Service.
Which is great, because it just means, yeah, it's like, well, why are they getting, or it's much easier for PPs, probation practitioners, as well, isn't it, to just say, right, anyone on my caseload could be referred. Fabulous, thank you.
Claire,
so that's, yes.
We've got a question in the chat from Joss that says, does it slow down the revolving door in any measurable way?
That's a very big question. I was speaking to one of the police sergeants about this, and he wanted to go away and look at the stats on people that were really engaging and making that success. So we have qualitative evidence that people have slowed down and are making a much better go than they ever have before. That's something that we do a lot, don't we, Claire? That we look at the stories and we build the stories, and we ask our clients to talk about how they think coaching makes things different. But it's a work in progress, Joseph.
I mean, we absolutely, it's definitely, I always remember in Hindley, we were working with young adults, you know, really, really hard to engage, get them in groups and think. And one of them, he'd never stayed out for more than a week. And he was out for 2 months and counting. And I haven't been able to track down how much longer he has stayed out for. But, you know, it's that just absolutely, it has been seen to slow the revolving door. And we are going to be looking to be doing some more quantitative evaluation, and Greater Manchester will be joining us with that. And we've also had other offers of people who will help us do the counting. But yeah, probation, we're able to see the difference and feel the impact of it without the numbers of that on that sort of level. Excellent.
Sorry, can I just add, Claire? It's often about, for ION, for example, it's often about what difference do we see, even if a person is still within certain patterns and ends up going in and out of prison again. Do we see any difference in terms of how they're engaging and willing to address whatever they need to address? For example, mental health or drugs and alcohol service or trauma. And there's definitely, we're building a lot of evidence for how people that work with CIAO and CIAO clients do show increased willingness to start to engage and not be so isolated and try and work things out themselves and be stuck in those cycles, and to ask for help, which is an excellent way for them to start slowing down that revolving door.
Yeah, and as James says, the letting down that facade and letting people in. And sometimes people get recalled back into prison because of, yes, crimes they committed before they even started coaching. That whole justice system turning. So that's our the one-to-one coaching that we've done. And then you may have noticed there was a global pandemic. And at this point, we could no longer do the one-to-one coaching. We'd been given some work with Salford Youth Justice Service, and we were just started working with children, boys and girls, and it was going brilliant. You know, your one young lad had wanted to carry on his coaching even when he was no longer on an order. But then the pandemic hit, and so we couldn't reach the young people or any of our clients. And so instead we decided, well, what we're going to do instead then is we're going to do something for staff. We'll help staff build their coaching muscles so they can then play it forward and start using it, sort out some stuff of their own, and start using it for the people who they work with. So, and that's what happens anyway with our clients. They sort of, you know, go back to their pad mate or walk out of their probation session and sort of start asking other people coaching questions too. I'm just going to show you very briefly what we designed instead. So we came up with this thing called Coaching Circle. So it was online, like all of us lot here, 6 people on a Teams call, and with one or two CIAO coaches doing some facilitation. And it was all about building the skills, connections, and the ideas. And so you came up with a thing to bring, a problem or an issue. You come up with a thing to bring, and the group agrees it. It might affect the whole group or just one of you. And then you decide who's going to be the thinker, who's going to hold the thing, who's going to bring the thing. That person then becomes the thinker, and everybody else becomes a coach as you start exploring the thing. And you absolutely take it in turns. You go round that circle asking coaching questions, and it kicks off with sort of a half hour of coaching training. And all of those coaching questions, as ever, are to help the thinker come up with ideas to help them move forward. And it was just beautiful. You saw people build their coaching muscle with their skills. They really got to know each other better, because teams, you know, there are real advantages because you can see every micro expression, if they're just 6 or so, if you want to call. And even if you don't build any skills or connections, you come up with different ideas and solutions to the things that people chose to bring. So that's what we did with the coaching circles. And so now I would like to bring back in, who is it next? Yeah, so it's now back. So that was back in sort of 2021. Vicky, now over to you. You've been out of style a little while by then. And there was then a suggestion, something around diversity and inclusion it was. And we were asked to run some coaching circles. And tell us about your reaction to that, because I think it's not unusual, your reaction.
Yeah, so I thought, oh, don't really fancy doing this. I'm really busy. Haven't got time to do this. Don't think I'll get anything out of it. Obviously, it'd been a long time then since I'd been away from style. And if I'm honest, didn't even piece together that this was going to be the same company. Because obviously it wasn't Jules, it was coming in then to Hindley. And soon regretted my negative views and feelings as soon as I got into the group and took part in a coaching circle.
And can you remember how you were and what you brought? Can you?
Yeah, so I think at that time, staffing was in a really bad position at Hindley. High staff sickness. We're sort of back in that place right now, which is mad to talk about. It's come full circle. High staff sickness, staff that were on restricted duty, so they weren't able to work on the wings and prisoner facing. So in my safety department, I have some operational staff but they have a different role. So they are monitoring self-harm and groups around that, and looking at my violence figures and incentives for being violence free. And suddenly, because we didn't have the staff to run the wings, every single day I was losing my team and they were going on to operate the units. I still had the same work to do without the people to deliver that. And I was feeling a lot of huge responsibility that how am I going to keep this prison safe when I haven't got my safety team really day to day anymore?
Yeah.
And I think I was getting myself in a bit of a negative place. Well, you can't keep delivering the same outputs with no team to deliver that. So I think that's the thing I brought.
Yeah. And then you left feeling, how was it? What did you get from it?
Well, I think the questions I was being asked really got me thinking about why I do things. It was remembering that, you know, I am a bit of a blue sky thinker. There are always different solutions. You can work in different ways. And from being really negative at the beginning, I think I was asking myself a lot of questions, even when the session had finished, and got myself back into a much more proactive, motivated brain in my brain, and thought, you know what, things aren't going to be this difficult forever.
Yeah.
Let's work a little bit differently right now. Let's carry on.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've got some notes from what you said before. It's like now I'm inspiring my team instead of just telling them what to do. You started absolutely taking that coaching approach, and yeah, it felt uncomfortable at first, but you started seeing people coming up with much better ideas than you had. It's that whole what happens when we ask questions, and yeah, that sense of just arriving thinking, oh, what on earth is this all about, and then going away, and you started finding pots of money and all sorts of stuff as a result of that coaching circle. So yeah, great things came out of it as a result, which was fabulous. We're going to hear someone else is taking a coaching circle before. Siobhan, we did, if you are comfortable sharing with us the impact that you saw in South Central, where we did a whole suite, not the logistics. Aha, we have you. Wonderful. So
Yes,
this is an extra surprise special guest from South Central Probation. So yes, so we did over 100 or so people, didn't they, took part in coaching circles?
Yes, we did 27 cohorts within South Central.
Yeah, brilliant. So do you want to just briefly say your role and then see what you saw, what you got out of them? You didn't take part, but what you saw.
Yeah, I didn't actually do because it was for staff with line managers' responsibility. I work in the L&D team, so it sort of ended up in my lap really to just sort it out. And it was a bit sort of crazy, like I didn't really know any details about it. So Claire and I worked quite closely together, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But it was for the staff, and it was to improve their coaching skills for the staff that they line managed. So yeah, we covered a lot of people. A lesson learned that we learned quite early on, and it was difficult to then change because the cohorts were already set up, it was all line managers. So right from our seniors right down to our senior admin officers. And mixing didn't work because often some of the problem that they would be taking as the thinker perhaps wouldn't be appropriate to be sharing with certain audiences. So that was learned. That was a lesson learned quite early on. Couldn't actually change it because obviously the cohorts were sort of set. We couldn't mix them up. But the second round worked much better.
Yeah. And what did you see? Because I remember even in the very first session, people decided not to leave.
Yes.
You know, people were going to help with staff retention. What else did you see?
Yeah, so I mean, it started off very negative. Why are you making me do this? I don't want to do this. I don't need this. I work in programs. That was a common one. So I don't need this training. But actually, at the end of it, when you read their feedback, it was like, oh, I'm not so reactive. I'm much more, I reflect rather than, go full steam ahead. I think probation staff tend to be, we're tellers. We try and solve people's problems, and it's not always about that. So
and it's exhausting. As I was saying, exhausting doing that whole, brilliant. Well, lovely to have you on the call. And there's a whole report on that, which we haven't created a slide or anything else for.
Yeah.
But people, go on.
No, thank you. It was positive. It was a much more, if you balanced it on the scales, it was definitely, the pros against the cons. You're always going to get negative people that don't embrace training or change. But the majority really embraced it and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we always say that with coaching, it's a question of people have to want to be coached and step in, or just find out what it means, and then they can absolutely fly. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm now going to take us through to schools. So James, sorry, he has two names. James is also called Fred. So James, tell us about what happened, because we were then with the youth justice stuff, we ended up with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority Violence Reduction Unit. So the Violence Reduction Unit were really curious about what we were doing, the VRU, and came to a presentation like this and took away what we do and said, hang on, we're doing some stuff with schools where everyone else is doing mentoring in various schools in Manchester. And we said, yeah, we'll do it as long as we can do coaching. And so, James, you started coaching children in schools who were 11-year-old plus. So tell us what you saw there, the difference it made, and the difference in coaching children.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, unfortunately, there's some similarities to coaching in prison as well, in terms of coaching within the system, with the client's relationship with authority and that kind of thing. The fact that the clients all call you sir, and I have to remind them both in schools and prisons that I'm not a teacher or a prison officer, and to call me James. But I think with children, I suppose, again, another similarity in coaching with the children and in style is clients come with huge amounts of potential. You know, you're talking to 11 or 12-year-olds at the beginning of their life, or you're working in prison with prisoners who quite often are at rock bottom. So the potential for personal development and growth with all these clients is fantastic. The children, it makes it's not for all children. We probably have a higher level of sort of dropout rate, but those that do engage tremendously well. They love the fact that when we start the coaching relationships, we say, I'm not a teacher. I'm not here to tell you what to do. You'll decide what we talk about, and I'm not going to give you any advice. I just interested in what you think and what you feel, and they love that. That's a really new experience for them to be able to be in control of those sessions in terms of what they want to bring and what they want to talk about. Sometimes it can take weeks or months for them to build up that trust for various reasons before they can fully open up. But then you see some fantastic coaching sessions when they do, when you do gain their trust. And it amazes me that despite their very few years of experience, as Claire says, often only 11 years alive, they have some fantastic perspectives, awareness, and ideas. You know, tap into their ideas, their creativity, their energy, their strengths, and great things can happen.
Yeah, brilliant. And that sense of control is just so important, isn't it? Because all of our clients start generally with right, let's do a snapshot of your life and see where you are. And then what do you want to change? Where do you want to start? Yeah, and having that for a child with an adult is really, really interesting, isn't it? And I loved it. Had you finished, James?
Yeah.
I loved it. One of our other school coaches, Sonia, coached a young woman, and she'd been excluded in a pupil referral unit for 2 years, and Sonia coached her and she became a prefect. So for someone to go from pre to prefect, that's the kind of stuff that we can see, Joseph. So that's why we're hopeful, and that's why people have seen it absolutely worthwhile investing in coaching to stop the revolving door, or in this case, to stop young people going to prison or youth getting involved in the youth justice service in the first place. Because we're absolutely dealing with child sexual exploitation. We're dealing with young, county lines, young people with knives, gangs, guns, all that kind of stuff is absolutely there in the schools in Manchester. So
Claire, one thing just to add that Fiona mentioned around working with strengths. Often, strengths is a big part of obviously coaching, as you said with the diagram. I think with young people and in prisons, their relationships with authority or teachers or their lives have often been around what they've done wrong and what they're not good at, and when you start to explore what they're good at, where they get their energy, ideas from, their personal qualities and strengths, you can see their faces light up. And I'm talking about grown women in prison or 11 or 12-year-old boys and girls that when they hear for the first time, because you're raising the awareness, it's not me telling them what they're good at, it's them articulating themselves what their personal strengths are. You can see their faces change, and they walk out completely differently. So it's a great way to help raise that awareness, often for the first time in their lives.
Yeah, brilliant. As I said, that thing around the measuring sticks, you just see, that little bit more of the confidence and that green section, the good coaching in the triangle. Beautiful. Thank you very much indeed. And so I would now like to ask Pavia to share, if you introduce yourself, Pavia. So how did you first find out about CIAO? Say who you are and where you come from.
Hi everybody, so I'm Pavia, I come from Manchester. I was introduced to CIAO, I was thinking it was some 3 years ago now. At the time I was on a probation order. This wasn't part of the what I had to do, the requirements for probation, but an opportunity come up. I think it was with a Greater Manchester Women's Centre Alliance. And somebody just contacted me and said, would you like to engage in this coaching? I had no idea what coaching was, what it meant, and how it was essentially going to transform my life. So I turned up on Zoom during the midst of lockdown. It was
one of the coaching circles, wasn't it, that you were part of?
Yeah, it was a coaching circle. It was a very varied group. I think there was myself, somebody else who was on probation. I think there was the manager of the Women's Centre. There was the head of practice at women in prison, yourself, Claire, and somebody else. So very, very varied. And very, very quickly, I've begun to establish that, number one, we all share similar problems. And number two, that we all hold the answers to our problems too, ourselves. So the coaching circle allowed me to very quickly feel what it was like to be a coach, to ask them questions, and to also explore them answers as the thinker. And during that time of my life, I don't think many people was really asking me how I felt, what I thought. And now working frontline in women's centres, I feel like this is a common theme that happens. So for me, it was quite like revolutionary in the way that I approach myself and my relationship with myself, that actually I have the answers here and I don't need external sources to tell me what to do, because ultimately I hold them answers. And I come away from that circle with obviously coaching skills, exploring myself, big concepts that I was exploring within myself, but also I started to question how I was holding conversations with people around me too, and how that was maybe impacting the quality of the relationships that I was able to have. And I think, when we started, Claire asked, are you a teller? Are you an asker? And I was definitely a teller. And I feel like, if I'm honest, that was hindering a lot of my relationships. And all of a sudden I found myself, even as I was still telling, saying, you're doing that thing, you're doing that thing. And I was able to see again how this was really impacting and shutting down conversations with those that I loved, unintentionally, just because that was what I was used to doing. So it really transformed the way that I communicated, which I think was one of the greatest gifts that I will take from that space, as well as having, being able to explore myself and seeing that some of the problems that I was holding wasn't actually as big as I thought. And that, again, I had the answers inside. So that was 3 years ago when I was exposed to coaching circles, and it's been a journey since. It was transformative, really. And
so, Pavia, do you want to share what's happened since then?
So since that, we have been on a huge journey. I messaged Claire after that, and I was like, Claire, is there anything else that I can get involved in? Because I kind of like this coaching thing. And Claire put me in touch with Jules, as I've heard today. And myself and Jules have been able to have some one-to-one coaching sessions, and they have just been, wow, mind-blowing, really. Again, very, very quickly, we've got to some real depths of myself through just being able to hold that space. And sometimes, looking at the questions that I need to pose to myself and the answers that come beyond that, really. I've really been enjoying the space with Jules. I'm still enjoying that space with Jules. But there was moments where I come away and thought, that's what that is. And again, Jules never, ever has said to me, I suggest this, or this is this, or do that. And I think there's something really, really, again, empowering about coming to your own solution. I think when you have the answer and you hold the answer and you've come to that conclusion, that is just a different level of someone saying, do this, do this, do this. So I've engaged in counseling before, therapy, maybe even mentoring, but coaching for me has been, the light bulb moments. So me and Jules are still on our journey, and we'll see where it takes us, but it's been great.
Yeah. And you, as a coach, where are you up to as a coach now?
So then we came onto another part of our journey where Claire was like, how would you feel about potentially being a coach? And again, I'm holding space in women's centres frontline, and I feel like this service is missing, like vitally missing. So I said to Claire, I'd love to explore this a little bit more as a coach. So I've been engaging in some coaching training to get a level 1, which again has been absolutely amazing, and being able to look at the differences of mentoring, coaching, therapy. So I'm currently undergoing that, but I would love to bring that into women's centres across Manchester and ultimately across the UK, because I do believe that women are often told what to do in them spaces. And I do believe for true rehabilitation, that can't be the way, because again, we hold our answers. And just being allowed that space to explore your own answers is, for me, life-changing. So level 1 coaching certification incoming, and hopefully I shall be practicing some of this in the women's centres and potentially in prisons too.
With Chow too. Excellent. And now what you're about to say in response to my question will not surprise anyone who's heard you speak today. And where are you up to now with CIAO, Pavia?
So then we went another level. So I have just become director of the board at CIAO, trustee and director of the board at CIAO, which again has just been amazing. And I don't think I would have been exposed to such processes, information, had it not have been for that space. And yeah, I'm just super proud to be able to represent one for lived experience voice, whether we like that phrase or not, lived experience, lived expert, but to be able to bring my richness of life into that space, but also again just to be exposed to certain knowledge and look at processes. And for me, I wouldn't have got that outside of that space. And it's been a pleasure to also sit with the people that I've met and develop them relationships. And yeah, it's just been transformative, really. And I don't know where I would have been had it not been for certain situations.
Brilliant. Well, it's great to have you on the board of the charity, Pavia, and thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
here today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so we're now 15 and we're coming up with all sorts of different ideas. And we're going to ask you after the little activity about where you think coaching might be used, where else we might try it out, all sorts of other stuff like that we want to get from you in the audience. But before then, we are going to take we're going to change gear. We're going to bring you back in. We're going to start doing activities. We've got an activity. And so the question is, we're going to talk a bit more about the theory of coaching, et cetera, but forget that. We're just going to put it straight into practice. And we wanted us all to have a chance to use some coaching questions. We couldn't manage the breakout rooms. So instead, we have designed some sort of self-coaching questions, which is something else we're looking to do within the criminal justice system. When we can't reach people, we're going to work out how to do some sort of micro-coaching, micro-self-coaching activities that we'll share with people if they're inside, etc. So what we're now going on to is looking to change for you, every single one of us on this call, to change something for the better right now. So let me share. Here we go. So let's share back to the slides. Okay. Right. So what do you want to change? I gave you this heads up in the email that I sent you. So yeah, all about the questions and the light bulb moments that Pavia was talking about. Something you would like to improve right now, today, in your life or work. To begin with, we were thinking, oh, some meeting or event that's coming up, but actually coaching questions are always better if they're just really open, so that the person answering them can, decide what they want to ask. So that's what we're going to be doing now. We're going to take 10 minutes. And you could just think quietly to yourself for 10 minutes about what you'd like to improve. But instead, we have our coach Fiona is going to take you through 10 questions that you might choose to ask yourself as part of the activity. So Fiona, are you ready?
I am. What are you really trying to achieve? What would be a great outcome? What would it look like? What advice would you give someone in your situation?
I love that one. I love what advice. It sort of just flips it neatly.
If you could do absolutely anything, what would you try? So what's stopping you? What's really stopping you? What if the opposite of what's stopping you were true? What haven't you thought of yet? What will you do now? What difference might asking more coaching questions make?
Okay, you've had the voice of the coach speaking through those. They will now stay on the screen. I forgot to tell you that beforehand in case you were scribbling them all down. So what we're now going to do, we're going to be coming back and exploring, all the questions you have, looking at what we're going to be doing next, asking for more suggestions, and something beautiful will come out of that discussion. But for now, we will pause the recording and come back and hear what came of that for you.